custodians of the land and waters of the Nurrunjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you, councillors. Item 1, apologies, and I have nil. 2, at this stage, no one's notified me of an acknowledgement, but at this point, I would point out, councillors, that since we are in election caretaker mode, I will be very careful about accepting anything that leads into a statement of election-like material. We've got a pretty straightforward agenda today, so I'd ask you to confine yourself to that process, please, at this point in time. Item 2, confirmation of minutes. Could someone move that way, please? Councillor Rountree. For a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Discussion around the minutes. Just letting Ashley catch up. We've only got Ashley today. Councillors Rountree and Taylor. Ashley, please. There is none. Closing.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 3 is adjourned business. We have nil. Item 4, minute action list. Any questions from council members regarding the minute action list, please? Councillor Arthur, you are signalling something.
Comment on the new signs that they've put up at the dumps, that are very clear, concise, so everybody can see actually what they've got to pay and what they've got to pay for. And they are very big signs instead of the little 64 sort of thing.
Righto, thank you. Any other? Councillor Qualman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Around the minute action list.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. 058/22, the Canalpin Caravan Park. Are we close to now having that electronic payment sorted out yet, please? Are we going with that?
Through you, Mayor. They on order. As of last week, we hadn't got a confirmed date. We were hoping soon, but Matt, do we have a confirmed date yet? No, it's really with the supplier still. It's not like we haven't been pestering them.
Thank you.
Anything else, councillors? Okay, we move on. Number 5, questions with notice. We have nil. Questions without notice. Councillor, we'll start with Councillor Rountree, then Councillor Ling, I think.
Any advice on the river flows come through? I saw there was an email. Can the CEO just elaborate on the river situation?
Through you, Mayor. And
certainly.
so I sent out 2 emails today. I think one was a SITREP report that has started from emergency services, and the other one is a flow advice that comes out quite regularly. I think I've flicked that one out. At this stage, we are remaining to monitor the situation. In my last email, I made a point of saying that we're very active members of both groups from emergency services that are involved with this, and we take our advice from them, monitoring our infrastructure. And I gave some examples of what might happen if we get advice that we need to act. For example, the pontoon, which is a floating one at Dixon Reserve, may need to be removed. The fixed jetties will actually have a buoy attached to them. So as the water rises, so does the buoy, so we know where things are. And we'll also monitor the lakes in a sense, but it's really the not tidal, I'm in the wrong state. It'll be wind surge and that activity that causes a rise in the water, which is a temporary effect rather than a flooding effect. So we're continuing to monitor, and we'll act as the state requests us to do so.
Councillor Ling.
Thank you, Chair. Question to the CEO. Just wondering where council stands with renaming the Wellington East Reserve after the Muckery family.
So, through you, Mayor, we've asked for advice from the Nurrunjeri people about a suite of names that would be appropriate for that. They haven't come back to us yet.
Any other questions without notice? We move on. Reports by members, councillors. My report is there. Is there any questions? I might just make, sorry, yes, councillor Qualman.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, September the 7th, business Murray Bridge breakfast, Murray Bridge, please.
Invited to the Murray Bridge, I suppose the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Or is it the RDA involved with it? To a business breakfast they run occasionally, I believe. CEO, can you add to that?
It's an actual group. It's not called the Chamber of Commerce. It's called, from memory, it's the Murray Bridge, like business association. They do have some connection to the RDA, but it's an attempt to reinvigorate that group. And as we don't have that type of activity here at the moment, and lots of the businesses in Murray Bridge spill over to here, I've asked to be on the mailing list for that. And at some point we'll talk about what that might look like for Canalpin.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And there was a presentation from TFI around their new beef chain at Murray Bridge. It was. I just might add, just the Canalpin Community Library relocation, and we've probably moved into the smallest library in the state. But there were some representatives from the library's board, I think they're probably called today, and it was all very, very nice. Thank you. Any other questions? There's none. I move on to only one councillor as a report this month, Councillor Taylor. You want to add anything to your report? Anyone else? Okay. Move on. Notices of motion. We have nil notice, motions without notice. I have nil, it appears. Number 8, Office of the CEO's report. Number 1, the annual business plan first quarter review. Councillors, would someone wish to move the recommendation? Councillors Rountree, for seconder. Councillor Qualman is the seconder. Do you wish to speak to the CEO, perhaps?
Through you, Mayor, most of it is fairly self-explanatory. It really is to just ensure that you're aware of the progress against the annual business plan and all of the actions that are in it.
Councillor Bland.
I have a question. It's fairly general, and that is around the time framing of delivering a lot of these projects. Do we actually believe that we are seriously going to be able to deliver these projects during, basically from January onwards?
Do you have a, sorry,
Crystal
through you,
ball?
Mayor, do you have a specific one that you're thinking
No,
about?
just generally there are a number of them there that have got quite the dates on them, and I guess I've been here before, and I sort of do worry that perhaps we may or may not be able to deliver these, and with some of the ability to get staff, contractors, product can be a problem.
So through you, Mayor, most of them on this list have already had work done behind the scenes, so it's not like we're going from a cold start in January, but some of them relate to weather, which we really can't start until now. Things like the skate park, we've teed up and you'll see, I think, a February date for that one. So there is work already happening with them. It's not like if there wasn't any work with them, we wouldn't have them on track.
Okay, it is a worry, and with the weather, that's an unknown, and we've been here before where not only that is it's washed out some of the works we've started, and the cost just goes up exponentially.
So you mean they will always be risks that we will have to either acknowledge and then mitigate, or acknowledge and find another solution.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Close, Councillor Rountree.
Close.
Put the motion. It is the recommendation as it reads. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Council policies, we have nil. Number 10 is section 41 committees and section 43 subsidiaries. There is a recommendation that we receive the minutes of the Canalpin and District Soldiers Memorial Swimming Pool and Caravan Park committee meeting held on the 12th of September. Someone move that way, please. Councillors Rountree and Taylor. Any discussion? Any discussion? Nothing? Councillor Rountree, you'll close.
Can I close and just make a quick statement about the pool? The
Well,
minutes?
no, you can, yeah.
I was just simply going to thank Sue Micken for all her hard work. I think Sue has stepped down from her position in the pool committee. Jenny Lutzi has taken over. I think Jenny's will be a great asset to the committee, and Sue certainly put in, I think, a little bit emotional for Sue at the meeting, and I think everyone paid her due respects. And yeah, I'd like to say thank
She
you. to
certainly
Sue.
has done a tremendous job,
She has, yeah.
particularly in the last few years in this rebuilding phase.
Yep.
I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. 11.1, Community and Corporate, Wellington East Structure Plan. Miles, would you like to speak to it briefly first before we take a mover in a second, so everyone gets where we're heading?
So we have spoken about this previously in the growth strategy workshop. What we've found with the growth strategy, in particular with Wellington East, is that it is a rapidly growing town in comparison to all of our other towns apart from Tailem Bend. Tailem Bend is somewhat equal, but when in a percentage of population wise, that, you know, Wellington East is changing from year to year. It is a unique town in that, you know, we talk about the old town and the marina as having two different characteristics. We have certain areas that are serviced by swims and power and non-potable water, and other areas that we often refer to as off-grid, but it lacks definition. It lacks a plan for orderly and sustainable growth. And of course, we non-potable water supply, and really for a town that's an hour a bit from the CBD and is growing, it needs potable water. So the structure plan will provide where people will live, play, work, shop, in distant future, so out to, you know, 20, 25 years. It'll also potentially accommodate some area that may remain off-grid, because that obviously is attractive for certain buyers, but it'll do so in an orderly and economic way. So if council's involved, obviously council's involved in infrastructure provision for growth, it'll in an orderly fashion, in a predictable fashion. And it needs a structured plan to be able to guide that. The structure plan will involve significant consultation with the community, of course, as well. Another really key point about the structure plan is that will allow us to have timing that feeds into the regional plan, which will be coming together over 2023. And the key point there is that replaces the zone amendment process, a separate zone amendment process, which would cost potentially twice as much as the investment we're undertaking with the structure plan, at least twice as much. So by doing it this way and wrapping it into the regional plan actually feeds straight into the planning design code. There's no other steps that you need to undertake. So that's the importance of timing. I'm quite happy otherwise. Questions?
That was Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Yench.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Regarding so there's a mention in here of town centre. Having noticed, of course, the for sale board where the development of the fuel station was going to be, is there any indication that someone would take that on as designed, or obviously you can, you're within the bounds of what you can tell us, and also where the community may have indicated there could be a suitable town centre, if you like?
Thank you, Councillor. I have nothing at the moment that I can share. And there's nothing even speculative that I'm aware of, so I can make that quite clear. And I think I would be aware if there's something, you know, worth divulging. The concern for me is that we need to think about the future, and that town potentially being a town of, say, 2,000 people. and ensure that we've provided enough land for commercial purposes in the right location. And the right location to me is adjacent to Ferry Road where we currently have. My fear is that if that's taken up by residential use, say, you know, apartments and the like, then in the future, you still then you have to find an appropriate site for commercial, and you'll start creating other issues such as traffic issues and the like, and interface issues. This will be explored, and so that's my opinion. That's my but it's really important through taking the growth strategy conversation about Wellington East to the next level, the more detailed level that can become a concept plan in the code so that it has some legal standing. And then developers can have confidence that if they're seeking commercial development in Wellington East, they can buy land, they can consider their developments because it's supported by the code. Otherwise, what you might find is that, okay, we'll in the future, we find we need, you know, there's a desire for a service station, and you're then having to do a code amendment on a residential parcel of land to be able to accommodate something that is an obvious. It's really about turning your mind to what's the potential of the town in 10 years' time, with the growth, you know, potential being 50 houses a year or so. And then turning into mind, it's not just population, it's commercial. It's also the tourism as well, because the town's got this unique characteristic of having this seasonal fluctuation. So it's not just the number of houses are there, it's all the visitors that are coming to as well. So it's almost like a mini Galway in the way that it changes throughout the year.
Thank you.
The end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The areas of Placid Estates, Washpool and Hector Road, whilst they are not Wellington East, I believe there are implications for these
Councillor,
areas.
we're talking about this area.
Yes, but it's an area that is joining. It is within a stone's throw. It has a significant population, and it would be a little bit lack of sight not to take into account what those areas are. Whatever form council decides, but it needs to be
Bring you back,
noted.
councillor, till we're on this one.
So in the growth strategy, we've identified the need to do some work on the smaller settlements. So it's not just the ones you've identified; it's the peaks and
Yes.
other smaller settlements. So Narung, that hasn't had a lot of attention. So a separate undertaking, and we might do that in 2 to 3 years' time. That probably is the schedule. Looking particularly at, and that will deal with the areas you've mentioned.
Thank you.
Councillor Bland and then Councillor Arthur, I think.
Point of clarification for me, and I may have missed it. The last paragraph refers to the 36,000 value of the consultancy. Is that for all of those small settlements, or is that just Wellington East? It seems
Talking purely Wellington East. Wellington East.
I assumed so, but I thought I'd better clarify it.
Clarify again my point about this will result in the ability to feed zone amendments straight into the code. If we were to do that separately as a code amendment, we'd be spending upwards of $100,000.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Arthur, would you indicate something?
Just one question to Miles. Regarding the old area, I suppose we call it, about 10 years ago, we spent quite a bit of money doing some surveys on that. Have we still got those details, and is that going to save us a considerable amount of money?
Through your worship, we definitely go back to previous documents, and there was some good work done about a decade ago. I understand that'd be our first reference point. But I think what we're finding now is that growth has outpaced policy, especially in regards the off-grid area. There probably certain parcels of land might preclude that orderly development concept that I was talking about before. So this is why it's really important. Immediately, and the point is that, okay, yes, we'll have some supporting information, but it is 10 years ago, and quite a lot has changed since then, and in this town particular.
I just expand, the only reason we looked expansion was taking place in that area. And it was a bit sort of ad hoc. No one really knew where what was, and like they got subdivided in the 1800s, weren't they?
And through the chair, this is the beauty of this process. We will go straight from a structure plan, straight into a regional plan and into the planning code.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Being none, can someone move a recommendation or the one? Councillor Coleman, you moving the recommendation? Council receive and notes the report?
Yes.
Thank you. You're a seconder. Councillor Bland, you're the seconder. Councillor Coleman, you want to speak to it?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, that I think it is important, like we just discussed, that it's not ad hoc, and we've got some sort of effective plan in place. And I do like and totally agree with the communication or consultation with the community. That's extremely important. So I'm glad that we're going down that road. Thank you.
Councillor Bland,
No further comment.
anyone else? No debate? Sorry, I am looking to the Zoom, but it's not there anymore.
I'll close.
We'll close, thank you. I put the motion is that council receives and notes the report. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, certification of the 2021-22 financial statements. Councillor Bland, you moving that way?
I am.
Thank you. You're a seconder. Councillor Taylor, I'll take. Is there any discussion around that?
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask,
Yeah, Councillor Arthur.
can I just ask one question, how we can sign off and we've never seen them?
We knew this was coming, councillor. So,
So through
Well,
you,
we have not seen the.
no, take your point.
through you,
Let the
Mayor,
CEO.
this is purely process, and you haven't seen the reports, and you will see them before it's signed off. This is really just to give the CEO and the mayor the authority to sign them, but they're not signed before you actually see them.
But if you read the report, it's once completed and the audit has been done and all that sort of stuff. If you're just reading that, it sounds like it's already been done. If it hasn't, I'm fine with it, but I wouldn't put my name to it if it wasn't. Yeah.
So through you, Mayor, if you look at that timetable on the last page, that
Yeah,
really
I did.
highlights.
Yeah. Thank you.
You, councillor Roundtree, got a similar question.
I did have a similar question to councillor Arthur, and one extra bit. When the next council's in, I notice that all this will involve the new council. How does the CEO plan to keep them up to speed with what happened? Is there a process?
Through you, Mayor, we are already developing a timetable of briefings that have to occur. Some of them probably before the first council meeting, and whoever's in the chamber, they'll be very busy for the next 3 months.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? The motion is that council authorise the mayor and the CEO to sign the certification of financial statements for 21-22 once everything else as explained has happened. It's been moved by councillor Bland, seconded councillor Taylor. Councillor Bland, you want to close?
Closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 3, disability access and compliance audit for Tail and Bend office, chambers and town hall. Councillor Roundtree, you moving that way?
I am.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur's first in this one. Is there any discussion, councillors? Debate? Councillor, you want to speak for or against Councillor Coleman? You got a question?
Yes, I've got a question more than anything. Thank you, if I may, please. In the dot points here, I find how old's this building?
Old enough for that.
10 years old or something? And we've got things like access to the chamber from the foyer door, where access from the foyer is narrow. We also got the various meeting rooms of a door width. I would have thought this was made up to compliance. I struggle with this.
Yeah, thank you, Miles. for the
Well,
dates.
To your worship, the building complied with disability access at the time it was built. And might I say also, this report will go slightly beyond the legal compliance to the practical situation of a person in a wheelchair using the building. So for instance, where you're sitting and the tables you're sitting at are quite compliant. But we have someone come in, an elected member who uses a wheelchair, and they won't be able to get under the desk here. So we would organise to have some raised desks. So that shows how it can be legally compliant, but it can be impractical for the use of someone who's disabled.
Exactly. Thank you.
Councillor Bland.
Question, this obviously to fix some of this to some degree is going to cost us some dollars, but also it's one of many of our buildings. This includes the town hall, obviously. So there's going to be quite a lot of costs going to that, and we'll be following through on this. This is something for the new council and another budget line.
Through you, Matt, that is correct. And I think when Kelly brought the Disability Action Plan to council, she made a comment that you can't retrofit everything at once, but at some point you start to chip away. So anything new will be compliant with today's standards. And then there are things that are, our front doors are a particular challenge for people, not just in wheelchairs, but people who are slight or have strength issues to actually access through the main doors.
Your Worship, I'll just add, so in the current budget, we accommodated this audit and some design activity, especially for the foyer area, with the view of having that work completed to include in next year's budget deliberations.
Thank you.
A question, councillor Roundtree?
I do, thank you, Mayor. Do we have, once we've got this set and we know what we're going to spend, would this enable us to apply for any grant funding to do with, upgrading these resources?
So through you, Matt, we always will look for grants in this area when they're available. And it may be that even if there's a budget line and we know that there is a grant that's coming, we may hold off for that grant. But generally, the grant is probably still a 50-50 arrangement. So it's one of those ones where the timing is everything. We've got the plan in place, and so we will keep an eye out for grants.
Councillors, I just might make a comment. If you read in one of the many comments, the function room at the rear of the town hall, the access ramp is too steep and not compliant. Well, I'm sure when it was built 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I can remember it being older than that, it would have been compliant. But it says, should such a major upgrade of this facility occur, install a lesser ramp. So it would depend on when we felt we could do that. And if you note, very late in this agenda report around, we're doing the Caldy footpath, and we're upgrading all the entrances to the curb lines as we go. So I think the prudent point is to upgrade when the opportunity arises simply. Anyone else speaking to that motion? You'll close, councillor Roundtree.
Closed.
So just the council receives and notes that report. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 4 is a grant of a lease to the State Emergency Service at Meningie, which is at the back of the old town hall. There's a recommendation. Councillor Ling and Councillor Yench, I see first. Councillor Ling, you want to speak?
No, I think it's straightforward.
Straightforward. Yench.
I agree, it's straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else want to add to anything? Being nothing, you'll close.
I'll close. Only comment I'd say is that SES, I think, have outgrown themselves in that building, and they will be looking to expand, I would think.
I think part of this process, including looking at Miles, that there will be another high shed put for the boat. I think that was
Yeah, the
new
boat
arrived.
New boat.
I think that's part of perhaps this process as well. Noted, councillor, thank you. Okay, I put the motion as it reads. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Item 12.1, Capital Works Program Update. There's a recommendation. There's some people got questions first. Councillor Roundtree.
With the little smiley faces and sad faces that are on the chart, do these get updated? For instance, I noticed the Coorong Community Skate Parks has cost and time sad faces, but I would imagine now that our cost is back on schedule and time is still okay.
Absolutely. Sorry, Mayor. Yes, this is really just a point in time, but we know that things change. But from, excuse me, from the original plan, we did have some cost implications and we did have some time implications.
So these three, Mayor, so these emojis aren't updated. They're just what they were from the beginning.
From the original. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to help councillors, it's not actually, it's in the information document. So Karkuma Road is being funded through the Special Local Roads Project $2 for, and it is now in the agenda. But we can confirm we've received that 766,000. The Minister has announced this figure. And the same with Poltallic Road, we can confirm that we will receive $984,000 from that pool of funds to assist in those two jobs. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So regarding Poltallic Road, we keep getting notifications of degradation on that road and damage. Given that that is now out to 2023, is it just a series of patching until then?
If you want to explain it. You and how much?
Approximately 4 kilometres to get completed this year, which is the section at the very western end, and then a section from where we finished between the two sections that we did this financial year. So the only section that will be the 3 kilometres at the very start, which is the 3 kilometres that are in the best condition. So there'll be another stage in subsequent years in 23, 24. But the worst part of it will be rectified as part of this project, which is likely to start this side of Christmas.
Okay.
So the patching will occur to temporarily fix the blowouts that are occurring there now.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the smiling faces here, we Unsealed Roads Renewal Program. The time is not looking real happy. Could the Director of Roads and Infrastructure give me some more definitive?
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor. The Unsealed Road, the time requires attention, not that it's at risk. The program was to do 60 kilometres of road. Part of some of the budget considerations and adjustments we made, major capital projects, we brought that back by 6 kilometres to 54. So that is still a stretch target. We are aiming to deliver the 54 kilometres of reshooting. But it is something that still requires attention and close monitoring.
Thank you.
Probably ready for someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Qualman and Councillor Roundtree, please. You want to speak to a councillor now? We're in formality.
No, thanks.
Councillor Roundtree, anyone else? Councillors? Being none, you'll close.
I'll close. Thank you.
Council received and notes that report. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 13, we have no petitions. Number 14, deputations, we have none. Number 14.1, we have no questions in public question time because we're in the caretaker period. Item 15, information document. Is there any questions there regarding that from councillors? Information document, Councillor Roundtree.
What's happening with the grading now that we've had so much rain? Are we pausing grading or is it still being undertaken on wet roads?
Through you, Mayor, I'll look to.
Matt,
We're focusing currently on the major roads that we use for grain harvest to bring them up to scratch. When the road is too wet, we will stop grading. But most of the time, it's only for sort of a 24-hour period. Once the road dries out sufficiently, it's actually perfect conditions to grade the roads with the roller so that we've got some moisture in there for compaction. So we won't be stopping our patrol grading program.
Two more.
Two more. This is the only one with a hand up. Yes.
Traffic counter data. Oh, do we know why they failed? On page 4. Is that common for them to fail? Okay.
They work on rubber tube, and as it passes across the rubber tube, it shoots a pressure wave into the unit. If the tension as you pull the rubber tube across the road isn't exactly the same, it can cause malfunctions. So if a car goes over it quite quickly and the tension's different, the diameter of the hole is smaller, so it shoots the pressure wave through quicker. So it doesn't work. But it is a technical issue. They're not the most sophisticated piece of equipment. Good word, thank you. So it happens. It's not uncommon.
So through you, Mayor, is that just education for the person that's putting them out? Yes, okay. Last question then is the CEO meetings on September 2nd, the SA NFL infrastructure plan. What was that about?
So just prior to that meeting, we had received a report that the Football Association, I stumbled with the acronym, had presented to us, and it was a look, and state bodies do this quite often across the place, of the needs of the various football associations across. And so I just wanted to touch base basically with her, establish that relationship, and it's a very good report. And I think I actually circulated it to councillors that we can use now to leverage for grants for those particular sporting clubs. And it was really just to get to know the author of the report and how we can work with her into the future.
Anything, Councillor Arthur?
Now, just a question to Director of Infrastructure and Assets regarding the Canalpin Tindanara grader. It's virtually hardly worked this last month, and everybody down our way is wondering if it's gone missing. The number of hours are negligible. Have we got some problem there?
Rainey.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but I think we also had a staff member off.
Sorry, we've got
We had a staff member off work.
So we're back to the old way now if we don't
Councillor Step.
cover
Step really
one of our
careful.
grader operators.
Sometimes, through you, Mayor, sometimes, councillor, we don't have the capacity to cover, depending on who's at work and who's not. In terms of the pool of people, it doesn't take long to cause the staffing availability to become lopsided if you have one or two people off with planned leave and then maybe one or two people off with sick leave.
Thank you.
Any other questions around the information document? Councillor Bland and Councillor Qualman.
A question in relation to our waste management program, and are we going to be receiving reports from the new company? I have had a number of concerns, which I know I have sent in, attitude to speed, to the fact they've changed their route, particularly in the town centres where there is a highway and people parking on it and coming through at 9:30, 10:30 in the morning. So it is, put that into the system, so I'm hoping it's there somewhere.
So through you, Mayor, we will, as each complaint comes through, the stats will come through with the next report. This is just a finishing of the old one and the beginning of the new. And some of it may be around education, that when there is a change, whether it's in timing or the days, that sometimes it's about getting used to it. But if there's a specific issue that people are struggling with, and if you've lodged them as a complaint, we'll be looking at them.
I have lodged it, so on our network, so on CRM, so it should be there.
I actually received the first monthly report at 4:29 this afternoon. So I have had a quick look at it, and it's quite good. From an administration point of view, the number of complaints about waste collection to the council staff is actually reduced.
Right.
So we feel from an administration point of view that the service that we're provided by the new contractor is actually quite good, in particular it being the first month. Yes, there's been some issues with times. So the times of of when the truck comes past people's houses has changed.
Yeah.
And that's a function of the previous driver being located at Meningie and go from south to north. So that's been the main issue. There has been some minor changes to routes. Most of them have been accommodated the residents reasonably well, but there's still some work in that space for sure.
I think one of the biggest questions has been around the fact that they've gone from, and admittedly, we did have a driver in Meningie, but one of them was around when they first come into Meningie to do the main street. And I think that probably would be an issue elsewhere as well when you're on a highway. People parking and trying to get in then to pick up the bin from the shops that are sitting out there until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning during a busy period. So it may be worth trying to have a look at that and rejig it a little bit.
So you may will follow that one up, councillor.
Thank you.
Qualman is next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question through the chair to the Director of Structure. We just, residents have been raising concerns about the prolific growth, and we all realise how much the grass is growing. Community facilities, are we throwing everything at it, like, will we experience some breakdowns or staff shortages? Just seems to be struggling a little bit at the moment. Trying to cut the grass, keep up with the grass.
So you may, it is just part of the challenge when it rains and the grass grows. And if the rain keeps coming and then the heat comes from summer, it's a continual challenge. We will never have enough resources to stay completely on top of it. It'll be always a little bit of catch up until it comes to winter again.
Councillor Arthur, do you have another question around the information document?
No, I already had it. Thank you.
Is that all, councillors, from the information document? Just before we move into confidence, just note, councillors, this is actually not our last meeting as a grouping. There is a finance committee meeting on the 1st of November, Ashley, I think. So don't think you're finishing today, the full council meeting. So we move to item 16, confidential. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence. The live stream will stop. Those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting.